it might help somebody that's already into venomous keeping to have a grasp from a point of view of when things go badly wrong.
Hello, I'm Nipper Reed.
And I'm Phil Wolf.
So, settle down, have a nice cup of tea, and enjoy the Venomous Exchange Radio podcast.
Crumpets, Nipper. I want the crumpets.
Well, as you've been such an extraordinarily good boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Venom Exchange Radio, episode 13. My name is Mr. Phil Wolf, and I am joined by, as always, the illustrious Mr. Nipper Reed.
Hello.
And this episode is a very unique episode. It's going to be rather short, but we felt that over the years that Nipper and I have looked at a lot of different aspects of venomous keeping, there's always something in the back of our minds and in the back of other people's minds that people don't discuss.
So Phil and I discussed the premise of this episode at length, and this episode isn't to glorify some of the more dangerous aspects of venomous keeping at all, but I think it's valuable from a scientific experience point of view, and I think it's valuable. It might help somebody that's trying to decide whether they want to get into venomous keeping. It might help somebody that's already into venomous keeping to have a grasp from a point of view of when things go badly wrong. So what we're going to discuss this evening is the fact that after 2 decades of accident-free venomous keeping, I actually took a bite last week.
Yep. And we will continue to say that it is not a badge of honor, but it is definitely something that should be discussed, excuse me. And I'm sure people want to hear your experience and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. As I say, it was a really valuable experience. It's certainly one I hope never to repeat. But I do think the information gleaned from it is worth hearing for members of the venomous community. And I think the people that listen to our show, they're already venomous keepers. It's not, I'm not going to put anything on social media. I'm not putting gory photographs on my Insta or anything like that. This is just a discussion between like-minded people that are already into the venomous side of the hobby.
Yeah, well put. So do you want to talk about how it transpired and kind of just go through the motions?
Yeah, so I was having a standard cleaning feeding day. I'd fed a number of the venomous stuff I've got already, and I moved to a vivarium that contained a group of Cistrurus miliaris barbari, the pygmy rattlesnakes. I was using a 2-foot hook. As I would do normally, I removed the lock from the cage, and then I slid the door open using the hook. And the female that I wanted to remove was towards the back of the viv. So it's my intention. I had feeding box in place outside the viv, and my normal procedure is to double hook out, put into the feeding box, feed with forceps, close the box, and then move on to the next snake.
And the reason why is because you have 3 animals in that one enclosure.
That's correct.
It's just it's easiest to remove the most tolerant animal that you know is going to be fine to be removed frequently and fed readily, and then at the same time you still have 2 other specimens in the same enclosure that are on, say, different sides, and it's a lot easier to watch 2 snakes eating than 3. Right?
Exactly that, 100%. If when I have single animals in vivs, I don't remove them for feeding. But this scenario, for the last year or so, I've had this trio, and this system works best. So, and I have gone through this over and over in my mind, as you can imagine. I didn't see the male, and that is the biggest error.
Yeah.
I should have 100% looked for where the male was, not assuming he was where he always was. It was nothing but complacency.
Yeah.
And as I say, I've been keeping for 2 decades. That's handling venomous snakes, every other day, every day for 2 decades.
Yeah.
You're going to get complacent at some time. And I put my hand up to it. It was just complacency. Because I wasn't physically going into the Viv, I don't know why, but I didn't check where the male was. And what the male had actually done, they're Viv exotic Vivs, and he'd actually got up onto the plinth just behind the glass. So even though I had a 2-foot hook and my hand was back 6 inches from the Viv, when I slid the glass open, he struck and he came out enough to tag me on the end of my finger.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is your ring finger on your right hand, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So not only your hand was out of the cage,
yeah,
your hand was far away from the target specimen, and
Yeah.
you're holding a hook.
yeah.
So that's very left field,
It's, as I say, I've gone through it over and over and over again in my mind, as you can imagine. The error that I put down, the biggest error was not locating each snake in the Viv before I started.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no excuse. There is no excuse.
Right. And it's so much more difficult with multiple specimens in one enclosure.
Yeah. To be fair, the pygmy rattlers are the only venomous that I keep in groups, because I think they do better in groups. They certainly seem to do better in groups, particularly for breeding. But yeah, it was one of those things. It was an error. There's no going back from it now. So I got tagged on the finger, immediately shut the snake. Fortunately, went back into the Viv, not out onto the floor.
Excellent.
Which was a good shout. So I slid the door shut with the hook, relocked it, went out of the building, locked the door, and then went straight into my home, upstairs to where the office was, where my partner was working. She was on a work Zoom call, so I had to interrupt the Zoom call and say, you need to take me to hospital now. She, to her credit, was extremely calm.
Excellent.
Got me in the car. At that point, there was no pain and no symptoms whatsoever.
Did you get the initial I don't want to say shock of adrenaline, but that infamous when something bad happens and you feel that like, ooh.
Oh, 100%. As soon as I felt the bite, which wasn't painful at all, it was it was exactly like getting bitten by a corn snake or something.
It's probably less because it's only 2 teeth opposed to say 50.
There was no real pain, but there was a oh shit moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things. I think as a venomous keeper, you kind of prepare yourself for it over your whole time you're keeping venomous. You kind of think this could happen. Will I be okay? What do I do? Will I remember to do this, that, and the other? And to be fair, literally the first thing I thought of was got to close the Viv, make sure the snake's in there, lock it up.
Good.
Which was good. As I say, no systematic symptoms whatsoever. Got in the car. The journey to hospital was about half an hour.
Wow.
Towards the end of the journey, my temperature went through the roof. Alison, my partner, was looking at me. She said, "You've gone bright red." She said, "I can almost feel the heat coming off you."
Wow.
I wasn't aware of this at the time. I got into the our accident emergency, what you call your ER, and I started to shake. and then I had to rush to the bathroom, and I was vomiting and diarrhea and really bad stomach cramps.
Do you feel like those secondary symptoms was a result of the stress and anxiety of the incident, or do you think it was a direct effect of Venom?
Oh, 100% direct effect of Venom. Without swinging the lamp too much, I've been in some fairly dangerous and unpleasant situations. I'm fully aware of how adrenaline affects.
Mhm.
It wasn't an adrenaline effect. This was stomach cramps,
Yeah.
dizziness. I couldn't stand up. I was so dizzy.
Yeah. No equilibrium at all.
No.
Yeah.
So then I was taken through into a room to be assessed by the doctors, and that's when the pain started. And I have genuinely, I mean, I used to box at MMA, and I've broken bones, I've dislocated bones, I've had cancer, I've had pneumonia, all those great things. I have never felt pain like this. It was a very specific, sharp pain.
Yeah.
And it got, for the next 2 or 3 hours, it got worse and worse and worse.
And this is a species that so many people worldwide consider to be mild or meek or weak toxined. You know, everyone poo-poos the cistrus, the pygmy rattlesnake complex in terms of being, oh, it's just a pygmy.
Yeah.
And then something like this happens.
And to be fair, I've read so many case reports about it, previously before this happened, and I've chatted to other people, and oh, my granddad got bit by a pygmy rattlesnake, and he went to work the next day and just rode it out. Fair play. I was in bits. I'm trying to work out. I'm not sure what the equivalents are for America. I'm 6 foot tall and I weigh 13.5 stone. So that's about 84 kilos. And I was in bits.
Yeah.
So much so, as the pain went on, every pulse was like someone hitting me on the end of the hand with a hammer. That's not an exaggeration. It's absolutely debilitating pain. And the swelling was, I was surprised how dramatic and how rapid the swelling was. So my hand swelled to approximately, about double the size within about an hour of the bite.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously the doctors were marking up my hand with felt pens to see how quickly the swelling was occurring. And then we had the debate, did I want anti-venom or not? Because of the associated risks with anti-venom. Everybody thinks, well, not everybody, but people that maybe aren't around the hobby as much thinks, oh, it's okay, you just get a shot of anti-venom and then you're fine.
Yeah. Right.
But anti-venom comes with a massive risk of anaphylactic shock and potential long-term damage for kidneys and serum sickness and all those good things. So there was a debate, but they felt because of the rapidity and increase in the swelling that anti-venom was going to be needed.
Right.
Now, I come from a country that doesn't have a great many snake bites.
Yeah.
Not like the US.
Right.
I mean, we probably have in the UK, we probably have 10, 20 snake bites a year from our one venomous snake, and they're pretty low key.
Yeah.
So the venom stocks in the UK are sort of centralized. So my nearest venom was at a place called Bedford, which was an hour and a half away on blue lights.
Wow.
So they got a blue light carrier motorcycle to bike the anti-venom down, and we had that on standby. So the plan was that I wasn't going to have anti-venom unless the swelling reached above the elbow.
Okay.
So by this point, I was laying in a hospital bed feeling particularly sorry for myself. And we got to about midnight, and the swelling passed my elbow.
Wow.
To the point that I couldn't bend my arm anymore. There was no
Jeez.
no leeway in the arm, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So we decided that's what we do. Now, again, the doctors in the ER were not familiar with snake bites at all. In fact, a lot of the doctors and nurses were Indian, and they were absolutely fascinated because they see a lot of snake bite, but they don't really deal with it. So this was the
Really?
first. Yeah, they were really interested, but they had very limited knowledge.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate because of the time difference. Midnight in the UK was, sort of like lunchtime for the Australians. So I was lucky enough to phone Scott Iper and Ty Iper, and they gave great advice as expected, which really did help a great deal when you're laying in a hospital bed, and the people that are supposed to be treating you really, once they don't have a clue, but they're reading textbooks to learn what to do to you on the spot.
They have no experience. They're learning on the fly.
Yeah, it really was a very good comfort to have the likes of Scott and Ty saying, right, at this time this will probably happen.
Yeah.
Look out for this. If you're going to have this, consider this, and so on and so forth. So that was really useful.
Excellent.
So we got to 2:30 in the morning, and then we started the infusion of anti-venom. I had 8 amps of anti-venom of a name which I can't pronounce. I know you can pronounce it.
Yeah, so it was Anavipman.
Anavipman, that's it.
Anavipman, which is produced by Instituto Balcon.
So because of the concern regarding a severe allergic reaction, we decided, under advice from various different people, to do the longest infusion we could. So they went for a 4.5-hour infusion.
Excellent.
So I was, as soon as I got to hospital, I was on saline drips with antibiotics in it. So they switched that for the antivenin. My temperature, conversely, plummeted, so that I was absolutely shaking cold.
Did your blood pressure drop with the temperature drop?
Yeah, blood pressure. I was being monitored. They were taking oxygen and bloods constantly. So that every half an hour they'd do blood pressure, oxygen sats, and every hour they was physically taking blood to do platelet, white platelet checks.
Good.
Also measuring fluids in and fluids out. I was urinating a lot because of the amount of fluids going through in an attempt to flush the kidneys through, which was
great.
Which was useful. It was a horrible experience in terms of, I know the window for anaphylactic shock for antivenom is 15 minutes to 2 hours. So it was a long 2 hours where I'm sort of laying in the dark, listening to machines beep, counting down, and just thinking, is this going to be okay?
And they gave you IV Benadryl as well, right?
That's they gave me IV antibiotics and antihistamine.
And then, did you have any ill effects from the antihistamine?
No, none whatsoever.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you if it made me drowsy because of
the pain.
The pain. I literally didn't sleep for 24 hours. So so we got to. I think the antivenom infusion finished about 7 o'clock in the morning, and by that time, the pain really subsided. The antivenom really. It was quite dramatic how quickly the antivenom took the pain away.
Excellent.
Comedically, they gave me morphine when I first got there, and I might as well have been drinking water.
Wow.
Having spoken to Mark O'Shea and Scott, normal painkillers have no effect on the pain caused by envenomation. Absolutely pointless. Yeah.
Wild.
So from 7 o'clock, the swelling started to subside. and then by about 5 o'clock the following afternoon, I had final blood tests. All the sats were good. Blood pressure was good. Swelling was receding. So I was discharged from hospital.
Excellent.
I got picked up by Ali. I got home. I got in bed and I fell asleep at about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I slept through till about 12 o'clock the next day.
Wow.
Just absolutely dead to the world.
Yeah.
I had no range of movement in my hand at all for 2 days. I literally couldn't. I could feel on the ends of my fingers, but the whole hand itself was hypersensitive, and just even cold air on the back of my hand was extremely painful.
Yeah.
But gradually over time, I was trying to keep my hand moving as much as possible. And gradually over time, I could touch my thumb on my forefinger, and then the ring finger, and so on, until,
Excellent.
over a period of days, I got the movement back in my hand, and the swelling is, I mean, what are we on now? Day 5 now, and I've pretty much, the swelling's totally gone now.
That's great.
Yeah, on day before yesterday, blisters started to appear at the bite site. So I've got a blister about the size of a 50p piece for English people. I'm not really sure what the equivalent is in the US, but
it's probably about a 50 cents, a
50
half dollar,
cents.
half dollar.
Half dollar size.
Yeah.
Around the bite site. But apart from that, it's pretty much back to normal. So yeah, that was my experience. So at the moment, things are looking good.
Excellent.
It's just a case of waiting for the blisters to burst now and seeing what long-term damage has been done.
Yeah, man. And I thank you as your friend and co-host for sharing this, and we can make this episode. And I think it speaks volumes to both yourself as well as Ali, your significant other, because you had an idea of how things were going to go. You had instructed her in the best way that you could, and she handled it really, really appropriately. I think like she did her job really, really well, and however she could help you. And I feel like that's a big deal that a lot of keepers don't think about. And I know my friend group, we used to do like once a year, if we had new venomous guys and gals, everyone would get together at somebody's house and we call it spouse night, and your girlfriend, your husband, your roommate, they would come over, we'd get some pizzas and some beer, and we would basically show pictures of what to do, what not to do. And it's a huge testament to your training and your ability to communicate that with her. And I think that's a great thing.
No, thank you for that. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have the likes of you and Scott on the end of the phone, and I can't thank you enough, because it is distressing for a partner. Ali doesn't keep snakes. She's interested, but she doesn't keep venomous snakes. But she could talk to you.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in a position to really explain much to her at certain points. I was just, just trying to keep it together because I was in so much pain. So she was lucky that she had somebody that could reassure her and tell, this is normal, this is going to happen, and so on. So that is really lucky. So your point is super valid. Anybody that's keeping venomous or thinking of keeping venomous, don't just think about yourself.
Right.
If you have a significant other, as you so right, I think that's a fantastic idea. You need to give them a support group or a support person that if anything happens, call this number and they can talk you through it. Even if that's just like a security blanket in, it's okay, it's normal that they're doing this to him or they're doing that to her or whatever.
Right.
I think that's so valuable, super valuable.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. Absolutely. But it is a horrible scenario, but it couldn't have gone better, in my opinion.
No, I would agree. And as we had a conversation before, I'm not happy that it happened,
Right. Of course not.
but it was an interesting scenario to go through, and it has given me a far greater understanding of the biomechanics of how venom works and the respect that needs to be done for any venomous snake.
Yeah. Any
Um,
venomous snake.
Any venomous snake. Yeah.
Regardless of toxicity on paper, as our good friend Ryan Cox always says, foreign what does he say? Foreign protein is foreign protein.
100%. Yeah,
So
100%. But and having had loads of time in bed to dwell on things and think about things,
yeah,
I would just for people that are thinking of getting into the venomous hobby, or even people that are in the venomous hobby but maybe haven't seriously thought about what happens if I get a bite. I'm a grown man. I was having to have my food cut up for me by my partner.
yeah,
I still can't drive. Now, I'm
yeah,
fortunate that I have a job where I can take time off and it's not an issue. But if I was self-employed, that could be a
yeah.
massive issue.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, I live in the UK. We have the National Health Service. My entire treatment was free.
big difference here in the U.S.
Exactly. Now, you think I can't remember, 6 to 8 IV bags of fluids. I had 8 amps of antivenom. I had more blood tests than I could care to think about. You
Yeah,
know, I had a room to myself in a hospital.
yeah, oh yeah.
All of this thing. I dread to think the cost in the US.
Well,
Um,
just for ballparks, right? And again, none of what I'm about to say is factual in any way. It's all ballpark, right? It's all a approximation. But assuming that one's insurance in the United States is not covering the bite, let's just pretend it's not covering it, which in most cases they're not going to, especially if they know that you keep these and you're already assuming the danger factors, right? The ambulance ride from your house to the hospital, if you even make those accommodations, easily $5,000. You're looking at about, or sometimes 3,500, 3,000, something like that. You're easily in about $5,000 a night in a hospital stay. If you get airlifted via helicopter, it is typically about $10,000 just to get the helicopter off the landing pad. That's not including flight times. That's not including fuel coverages, all that stuff. And then you're looking at the actual cost of medicine and testing, tens of thousands. And then you get down to the actual antivenin itself. Certain antivenins, like the antivitamin that Nipper received, is considerably less because it is produced in Mexico and it is what we refer to as a lyophilized antivenin. It's a powder dry, powder, for lack of a better synonym, that saline is added to, and it's basically turned on when it gets wet. Because of that, they can make it cheaper, they can store it longer, and it's less money. But if it was something like Crofab, depending on the hospital you go to, it could be anywhere from $3,500 a vial to $5,000 a vial. And depending on the species you get bit by, let's say it's Eastern Diamondback, the standard procedure for Eastern Diamondback, regardless of how big the snake was, is 16 vials. Wow. So you start with 16 and go from there. And this again, approximations. This may have changed. You know what I mean? I've been out of it for a little while. I'm not too fresh up on these procedures, as they change frequently, kind of like CPR protocol. But you're looking at a lot of expense. So the average venomous snake bite to a captive keeper in the United States is anywhere from $280,000 to $300,000 on average. Sometimes insurance will cover the majority of it. It depends on your insurance. So that's another factor that needs to be thought of, is making sure that your medical arrangements are spelled out and clarified and articulated to both yourself and the people around you.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. As I say, I was moaning about having to pay £2.90 for parking. So,
Yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I have a friend of mine who received an Eastern Diamondback bite, and he's a keeper. It was a captive animal. It was another freak accident, much like yours, and he received, oh man, I think he got like 22 or 24 vials of Crofab, and he was in the hospital for 4 or 5 days, and I think his bill wound up being like $380,000.
Jesus.
But because he had taken out, I guess he had insurance through his work, and they wouldn't do any snake bite stuff. So he says, you know what, I'm going to buy my own health insurance on my own, and he made sure it covered the gauntlet of snake stuff. And I think he wound up paying like maybe $3,000 in incidental crap that he had to pay for, because he didn't get an ambulance ride, he didn't get a helicopter. You know, his wife drove him, so it's not that bad, but still, $3,000 a lot better than 300.
100%. It's still super expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other, the more morbid things, you have to think life can be quite dangerous. My job can be quite dangerous. Other people's jobs are dangerous. Life can be quite dangerous. Do I want a hobby that adds that sort of danger to it?
Right.
My other great love, I won't be climbing for at least, I can't see myself climbing for a month, maybe 2 months now.
Yeah.
And then I'll be starting again, not from scratch, but I'll have lost all those gains. Same for training in the gym. I won't be training in the gym for a while. I'll lose all those gains.
Yeah.
I could have feasibly lost an arm. I could have lost a finger.
You could have died.
I could have died.
Yeah.
And again, this is a hobby. And I'm not trying to put people off, because I've had a fabulous 2-decade, hobby, which has fascinated me and still fascinates me.
Right. You're not quitting Venomous Keeping because of this, but
No.
it definitely brought a lot of light to scenarios you didn't even know were dark.
Yeah, 100%. I just think people need to, when we're all scrabbling to go, I want this, oh, this is good, I want this, I want this. We need to think that there is a potential huge danger element to this. And I think maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of people, after 20 years, I think you're getting a little bit, not blasé, we still treat the animals with the respect they deserve, but you kind of almost get to a point where you think it's never going to happen to me. And I just think we all, every so often, should just do a reality check and think, it's possible I'll lose a finger. It's possible I'll lose an arm. It's possible I might die.
And I think that's a very, very valid statement. And I love the idea of a mental refresher, a bring back to reality, as we do get unknowingly complacent.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't want to speak for you, Nipper, but I'll say for myself, when I got into Venomous, there was this nasty phrase that everyone used, and it was like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
Referencing to get bit. And I don't believe that. I
No,
do not
100%.
I have friends that have been doing this for 40, 50, 60 years, and they've never even had a close call.
Yeah.
The issue is that we love these animals and we want to work with them, and we want to get closer and more proximity to danger. And whether it's medical treatments or dare I say showboating, or we cross lines that we don't need to, and it brings us closer to that danger. And it's not even on an adrenaline or on it's not on purpose. It's just part of its nature of the game. But I do not believe the whole, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I don't believe that.
No, 100%.
You can go your entire life and not have an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as your protocols are good, and as long as you keep focused all the time.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Another issue that I thought of while I was laying there is I've got a reasonably large collection of snakes, venomous and non-venomous.
Right.
They still need cleaning and feeding.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm out of action. So it's things like that. If you are going to keep venomous, you've got to think of, part of your protocol is, and we have to have this listed on our licenses in the UK. I don't know what it's like in the States, but you need somebody that can look after your collection if you're immobilized for a period of time.
Yeah, see, my friends and I have that with each other, but
Yeah.
it's not in any kind of official capacity. So
It's just, I mean, it's just, again, something, if something's considering getting into venomous, that's something else. It's not just
Yeah.
you're going to need, I mean, hopefully you'll have a mentor or something like that, which is close to you, but you're going to need somebody that can maintain your collection. You can't expect your partner to maintain a collection because they won't have the skill sets to do it.
And I know there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I got the mobility back in my hand. I'll clean some babies. I'll use the baby. I'll use the neonate hook."
Yeah.
No, you're asking to have another accident. You're asking to have another issue.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm struggling to butter toast at the moment, so the last thing that I want to do is be, looking after venomous snakes at the moment.
Yeah.
So you need somebody that will give you a hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put, sir. Well put. Was there anything else you want to touch base on? I know this was a real quick episode.
No, I just thought, as we discussed, I just think it was worth putting out there. And again, just to reiterate, this is not how cool are we've been bitten by a venomous snake. So this is please be aware of the potential danger and the ongoing effects of getting bitten can have. And I don't want to be patronizing, but don't think it's not going to happen to you. You know,
well put.
20 years, nothing's happened. And then one miserable Thursday, bang.
Yeah.
But there we are. Fortunately, I'm not a millennial, so we're okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully some people got some good stuff out of this one. I know I did. And I know that you did. And it's also good to have a venue like you and I do to express this in a respectful circle of people.
Yeah, 100%.
And not just be like, hey, guess what?
No.
I like our community. I love our community. I absolutely love our community, and I love the people in it, and I love our listeners and our followers. And it's good to be able to express and convey these things with them. And it doesn't look like showboating, and it doesn't look like what's the word I'm looking for? Limelight. That's not the case at all.
No, 100%.
Purely educational.
Yeah, talking about our community, I cannot thank. I had so many people get in touch, just well wishing. Do I need anything? Do you need me to come around and look after your snakes? Just really, really kind. And I don't think there's many communities that you get that in. I mean,
there's not.
Not the bird community or the fish keepers or something like that. I don't think it's the same community. I think the venomous community is really, really tight. I think it's I was overwhelmed with the amount of messages and offers of help. It was quite humbling. So thank you for everybody for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. It sucks because I got 3 phone calls from you in a row, and I was like, something's up. I got to. And it sucked for me because I genuinely wanted to be there. I wish I could just hop in the car and
it is what it is, mate. Yeah.
It is what it is.
So. Yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Again, this is episode 13. And my name is Phil Wolf. As always, Nipper Reed. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening, folks. Just like and subscribe.
Yeah. Follow Nipper Reed on Instagram.
Yes.
Get him there, children.
Get me over the bar. Yes.